There are nights in sports that exist purely on the scoreboard, and then there are nights that mean something else entirely. Nights that feel like a shift, like the air in the room changed and nobody can quite explain why, but everyone felt it. The Linz 2026 Players' Party was supposed to be exactly what it sounds like, a gathering, a celebration, a chance for players and coaches to unwind after the intensity of competition. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. Until it wasn't. Because when 3 women walked through those doors, something happened that nobody in that room, and nobody watching online, was prepared for. Not the photographers. Not the fans. Not even, it seems, the players themselves. What followed was one of those rare moments that transcends sport, transcends fashion, transcends whatever category you're trying to put it in, and just becomes a moment. Full stop. Alex, Paula Badosa, and Mirra Andreeva didn't just attend the Linz party. They took it over. And the world noticed. Now before we get into what actually happened, let's talk about why this matters. Because on the surface, you might hear Players' Party and think, okay, nice photos, fun night, moving on. But that reaction misses the point entirely. What happened in Linz that night was symbolic of something much larger happening inside women's tennis right now. A quiet revolution that's been building for years, and on this particular night, it finally had a face. 3 faces, actually. And each one of them told a completely different story. But together, they told the same one. Tennis is changing. And it's changing fast. Let's start from the beginning, because the build-up to this moment matters. Linz 2026 had already delivered on the court. There were performances that had people talking, upsets that shifted the tournament's energy, and moments of brilliance that reminded everyone why they love this sport. But off the court, something else was brewing. A players' party at a tennis tournament sounds glamorous, and it is, but it's also surprisingly intimate. These are the moments where you see athletes outside of their competitive shell. No match pressure. No tactical focus. Just people, in a room, under the lights, being human. And sometimes, in those unscripted moments, the most revealing things happen. The venue itself set the tone. Beautiful lighting, elegant setup, the kind of atmosphere that makes you want to look your best and feel your best. Players arrived gradually, and the buzz was already building. But it was when Alex stepped in that the night took its first real turn. There's something about Alex that's genuinely hard to put into words. She has this quality, this magnetic stillness, where she doesn't need to demand your attention because your attention just goes there naturally. She walked into that room not with the nervous energy of someone trying to make an impression, but with the calm certainty of someone who already knows she belongs. Her look that night was sharp and elegant without being overdone. Modern, confident, and completely her own. But it wasn't the outfit people kept talking about. It was the presence behind it. Because Alex had just had a tournament in Linz that introduced her to a much wider audience. Her performances on the court had been turning heads all week, showing a level of composure and skill that made people sit up and pay attention. So when she arrived at the party, she wasn't arriving as an unknown. She was arriving as someone the tennis world had just started to really see. And she seemed completely at ease with that. No awkwardness. No overcompensating. Just ease. Real, genuine ease. And in a room full of accomplished athletes, that is not a small thing. Other players noticed. Insiders noticed. And the cameras, as cameras always do, gravitated toward her like she was the center of gravity in the room. Social media picked it up within minutes. Fans who had watched her compete all week were now watching her own a completely different kind of stage. And the reaction was the same across the board. Who is she and why haven't we been talking about her more? That's the thing about Alex. She's not building her story loudly. She's building it deliberately. Match by match, moment by moment, she's assembling something that feels bigger than just a tennis career. She understands, at what feels like an instinctive level, that the modern athlete is more than a competitor. She's a personality, a presence, a brand. And the most fascinating part is that it doesn't feel calculated when you watch her. It feels completely natural. Like this is just who she is. That authenticity is rare. And in today's world, where fans can sense performance from a mile away, it's incredibly valuable. So yes, Alex lit up that night. But the story was just getting started. Then Paula Badosa walked in, and the energy in the room shifted in a completely different direction. If Alex brought a kind of electric rising energy, Paula brought something that felt more like gravity. Settled, powerful, and completely in command of the space around her. Paula has been through the full arc of professional tennis at the highest level. She knows what it means to be at the top. She knows what it feels like to fight your way back. She's had the moments of glory and the moments of doubt, and she's come through both with something that only experience can give you, certainty. And you could feel every bit of that the moment she stepped into the room. Her style that night was bold and refined all at once. The kind of look that doesn't try to impress because it doesn't need to. Paula has long passed the phase of needing validation from a room. She walks into spaces now and the spaces adjust to her, not the other way around. Fans watching online immediately responded, not just to how she looked, but to how she carried herself. There's a word people kept using in the comments, and that word was aura. Because Paula Badosa has cultivated an aura over years of competing, struggling, growing, and evolving in front of the entire tennis world. And that aura doesn't switch off when she leaves the court. It travels with her. What made her presence particularly powerful that night was the context. She was standing alongside emerging stars, players who represent the new energy coming into the sport. And rather than being overshadowed by that, she complemented it perfectly. She stood as proof that relevance isn't about being the newest name in the room. It's about depth. It's about having a story that people can feel without you having to say a word. Paula has that story. She's lived it publicly, and she carries it with quiet dignity. There's something deeply compelling about watching an athlete who has been tested repeatedly and has chosen, every single time, to keep going. That resilience translates. Fans feel it. Players respect it. And on a night designed for celebration, Paula's presence added a layer of meaning that made everything richer. She wasn't just at a party. She was a reminder. A reminder that women's tennis has produced some truly remarkable human beings, not just incredible athletes. And she happens to be both. But just when you thought the night had reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Mirra Andreeva walked in and completely changed the conversation. Now here's the thing about Mirra. She's young. Really young in tennis terms. Still in the early chapters of a career that, by every indication, is going to be extraordinary. But nobody told her to act like it. Because Mirra carried herself that night with a fearlessness that honestly made you stop and look twice. She didn't walk in cautiously. She didn't hang back and observe. She stepped into the room and immediately became part of it. Fully, completely, without hesitation. Her style was playful and sharp, youthful but with real edge to it. It reflected exactly where she is in her journey, someone who is still figuring out the full scope of what she's capable of, but who is absolutely not afraid to find out. And her energy in that room was infectious. She laughed freely. She engaged genuinely. She moved through the space like someone who was simply having the time of her life and didn't particularly care who was watching, which of course made everyone watch. That's the paradox of real confidence. The less you perform it, the more magnetic it becomes. And Mirra was magnetic. What struck people most wasn't just that she was confident. It was that she was confident in this context, standing in a room with established names, veteran players, experienced personalities, and she didn't shrink. She didn't try to blend in or prove herself. She just existed, fully and completely, as herself. And that, at her age, at this stage of her career, is genuinely remarkable. Social media went into a particular kind of frenzy over Mirra that night. Fans who had been watching her compete were now seeing a completely different dimension of her personality. And the response was immediate. Comments flooded in talking about her energy, her presence, her confidence. Future star kept coming up again and again. But honestly, that phrase almost undersells it. Because future star suggests someone who is still arriving. And Mirra, based on that night, already feels like she's here. What made the entire evening so powerful was when you stepped back and looked at all three of them together. Alex, Paula, and Mirra. Three players, three completely different energies, three different points in their careers, and yet somehow, together, they told one coherent story. Alex representing the expanding map of global tennis, The idea that brilliance doesn't belong to any one place or tradition. Paula representing the depth and resilience that this sport demands, the proof that longevity is its own kind of greatness. And Mirra representing something electric and new, a fearless generation that doesn't see the big stage as intimidating but as exactly where they are supposed to be. When those three energies met in that room, something crystallized. It wasn't just three players at a party. It was a portrait of where women's tennis is right now and where it's heading. A sport that has always been about excellence is now also becoming about identity, about personality, about the stories athletes carry with them beyond the baseline. And the fans who watched that night, who scrolled through the photos and the clips and the reactions, they felt that. You could see it in the comments. People weren't just impressed by the aesthetics. They were moved by what it represented. Because sport, at its very best, gives us more than competition. It gives us characters. It gives us narratives that we carry with us. It gives us moments that we remember not because of a final score but because of what they made us feel. And the Linz 2026 Players' Party gave us one of those moments. A glimpse into a new era of tennis that is bigger, bolder, more diverse, and more personally expressive than anything we've seen before. And three women stepped forward that night and put their names on it. Alex. Paula. Mirra. The court will always be where champions are made. But moments like this one are where icons are built. And this particular night in Linz, it wasn't just a party. It was a beginning.